Hello and welcome back to my humble show. I'm your host for today and every other day, the Articulate Thinker, hopefully. And because I have to go back to work here in a few minutes, I'm going to run through some news real fast. News about Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin, who is back in the hospital once again. This time, the world knows about it, or at least they know about his condition. I said, after what happened last time around, that he should have been replaced. I still maintain my position. Because there was not a lot of transparency. There was a failure to communicate. Things were not handled properly, as we all know. If you don't know, I'm not going to go into it too much. I don't have time for it. Maybe I'll, in the process of updating you in the near or far future, I'll get more into the weeds about it and into the details about it. But for now, just the breaking news. And here's a clip for you, courtesy of Fox News, as posted by Real Mac Report. Just in, Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin is back in the hospital this morning after being transferred to the critical care unit at Walter Reed over a potential emergent bladder issue last night. Let me go ahead and enlarge this video. 29 seconds long.
Fox News alert, that man right there, our Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin, is back in the hospital this morning after being transferred to the critical care unit at Walter Reed over a potential emergent bladder issue last night. The Pentagon is saying, quote, the current bladder issue is not expected to change his...
Hold on a second. Wait for it. There it is.
Anticipated full recovery. His cancer prognosis remains excellent as the secretary transfers duties to his deputy secretary, which he did.
So, deputy secretary is in charge. Just had to move my face out of the way for a moment so you could see the rest of that quote there on the screen, in case you didn't get the drift. All right, where am I? There I am. And here I go. On to the next tab. A little bit more information for you. This from Colin Rugg. Just in, Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin has been transferred to the critical care unit at Walter Reed National Military Medical Center. Austin was sent to the hospital for an apparent bladder issue, but things appeared to take a turn for the worse. After tests and evaluations were conducted, he was admitted into the critical care unit. At this time, it is not clear how long Secretary Austin will remain hospitalized, a statement read. The current bladder issue is not expected to change his anticipated full recovery. His cancer prognosis remains excellent. Updates on the Secretary's condition will be provided as soon as possible. Austin's powers have been transferred to Deputy Defense Secretary Kathleen Hicks for the time being, as heard in that aforementioned clip, or aforeplayed clip, if that's a word. Aforeplayed. Does that work? It's going to work. Speaking of work, I got to go back to work here in a minute, so don't want to keep this news cycle spinning too long. I do wish the Secretary well. I hope he gets well. I'm sure he will. But I do maintain the position that he should have been held accountable for his previous failure to communicate. Someone should have been held accountable. But considering how no one was even held accountable after the botched Afghanistan withdrawal, well, I don't have a lot of optimism when it comes to the responsibility within and around the Biden administration, or at least the taken responsibility. The buck doesn't always stop with those whom it should stop with. I'm not saying it's the end of the world. Clearly, no harm was done. It's just that when you have someone who is in charge of calling shots, literal shots in the Middle East, for example, and he goes off the grid, he goes rogue. Not really, not literally, but considering his ongoing health condition, it needs to be transparent. And the word just did not initially get from his mouth to Biden's ear in the way that it should have. Not that Biden can comprehend much of what goes into his ear. Anyways, this from the New York Times, just a headline. Austin taken to hospital for bladder issue. Doctors at Walter Reed said Defense Secretary Lloyd J. Austin III to be exact, was in critical care in the critical care unit. The Pentagon said he had transferred his duties to his deputy. Good. Not, his condition, but the fact that he was able to appropriately, properly transfer his duties, his power. Another headline, this one from ABC News. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin cancels overseas trip following hospitalization. Hard to believe he could have handled an overseas trip at the time anyways, because, like I said, this is ongoing as of the last couple of months anyways. Austin was put under general anesthesia Monday, as in today. His doctor said, I'm just zooming through with reckless abandon a few headlines here. This from CBS News. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin in critical care after being hospitalized with emergent bladder issues, Pentagon says. Another headline, this one from Fox News. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin undergoes non-surgical procedures for bladder issue, full recovery expected. Austin was admitted to Walter Reed on Sunday and is expected to resume his full duties on Tuesday, as in tomorrow, doctors said on Monday, which once again is today. So let's see here. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin underwent non-surgical procedures after he was admitted to the hospital over the weekend for symptoms suggesting an emergent bladder issue, doctors said Monday. Non-surgical procedure. I suppose that's somewhat good news. When it comes to these sorts of issues, there isn't any good news, but there's some good news. And I wish him all the best. Can't say that enough. But I could go ahead and skip most of this, I imagine. I just don't have time to read and react to everything there is to read and react to. Austin said he apologized directly to Biden for not giving advance notice about his hospitalization. Okay. I could go ahead and read this. This is in regards to the previous failure to communicate. The secretary was heavily criticized in January following his January hospitalization for his cancer. Austin was admitted, but the Pentagon failed to inform President Biden, Congress, or the press until days later. Many days. Saying it once seems to be a bit of a... what's the opposite of an exaggeration? Let me know in the comments below. And feel free to disagree with me on anything I say while you're at it. Happy to hear from you. Here's a quote from Austin. I don't know what happened the first time around. I want to be crystal clear. We did not handle this right, and I did not handle this right, Austin said during a press briefing on February 1 regarding his hospitalization of prostate cancer treatment. I should have told the president about my cancer diagnosis. I should have also told my team and the American public, and I take full responsibility. I apologize to my teammates. And to the American people. So, some accountability taken, some responsibility taken. I shouldn't suggest that there was none of that. I'm just saying that if it were someone other than him, they might very well have been on the chopping block. You're fired. Or forced to resign, step down. Yada, 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 bing, bing, boom. But he is still around. So, he will not be facing full consequences. I don't imagine. Unless he is just completely incapable in the near or far future of fulfilling his role, his duties, which one might argue he has already somewhat been unable to do. So I have a couple of statements here from, U.S. Department of Defense, their website here. They're all short. I might see if I can cover all of them real quick before wrapping this up. I'm 10 minutes into this. Doing all right, but I got to go. I just want to go through this, that, and the other thing. What is happening here? First, let me go ahead and read this. In case you don't know much or anything about Lloyd J. Austin III, Lloyd James Austin III was sworn in as the 28th Secretary of Defense on January 22 of 2021. Mr. Austin is the principal assistant to the President in all matters relating to the Department of Defense and serves on the National Security Council. Sorry if the text is tiny. I don't know if you like reading it off the screen, but either way, you can hear me, unless you're deaf. Mr. Austin was born in Mobile, Alabama, and raised in Thomasville, Georgia. He graduated from the United States Military Academy with a Bachelor of Science degree and a commission in the infantry. He holds a Master of Arts degree in counselor education from Auburn University and a Master of Business Management from Webster University. He is a graduate of the Infantry Officer Basic and Advanced Courses, the Army Command and General Staff College, and Army War College. So, in other words, he knows what he's doing, or at least he should. A 41-year career in the Army included command at the Corps, Division, Battalion, and Brigade levels. Mr. Austin was awarded the Silver Star for his leadership of the Army's 3rd Infantry Division during the invasion of Iraq in 2003. Okay. 7 years later, he would assume the duties of commanding general of the United States Forces Iraq, overseeing all combat operations in the country. Yeah. Thank you for your service. After a tour as the Army's Vice Chief of Staff, Mr. Austin concluded his uniformed services as the commander of the U.S. Central Command, responsible for all military operations in the Middle East and Afghanistan. In this assessment, he led U.S. and coalition efforts to battle ISIS in Iraq and Syria. He retired from the Army in April of 2016. Since his retirement from military service, Mr. Austin served on the boards of directors for Raytheon Technologies, Nucor, and Tenet Healthcare. Connections to Raytheon. Seem to be a lot of people in this realm of establishment politics, though he's not technically a politician, who have connections to such entities. Regardless, back to the statements, the press releases from the U.S. Department of Defense. Statement from Pentagon Press Secretary Maj. General Pat Ryder of the Secretary of Defense, on Secretary of Defense Lloyd J. Austin III's health status. This was posted yesterday. Pentagon Press Secretary blah, 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 provided the following statement, blah, 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 blah. Today at approximately 2:20 p.m., Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin was transported by his security detail to Walter Reed National Military Medical Center to be seen for symptoms suggesting an emergent bladder issue. The Deputy Secretary of Defense and the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff have been notified. That would be Mark Milley, if I'm not mistaken, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. That is. Additionally, the White House and congressional notifications have occurred. Okay, that's good. At this time, the Secretary is retaining the functions and duties of his office. At that time, the Deputy Secretary is prepared to assume the functions and duties of the Secretary of Defense if required. Secretary Austin traveled to the hospital with the unclassified and classified communication systems necessary to perform his duties. We will provide an update, blah, 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 blah. So moving on to the next update, also from yesterday. Again, from Press Secretary Maj. General. I'm saying Maj. I think that's Major. My bad. Major General Pat Ryder. Okay. Pentagon Press Secretary, blah, 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 blah. Earlier today, Secretary of Defense Lloyd J. Austin III was transported by his security detail to Walter Reed, blah, 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 blah. Sorry, I am repetitive. It's because the statements here are somewhat repetitive. What is the update here? Here it is. At approximately 4:55 p.m. today, as in yesterday, Secretary Austin transferred the functions and duties of the Office of the Secretary of Defense to Deputy Secretary of Defense Kathleen Hicks. The Deputy Secretary of Defense has assumed the functions and duties. The Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the White House, and Congress have been notified, as have the rest of us. So, two more updates here. Then I'll be out of your hair. Okay. Statement from Walter Reed Military Medical Center officials on Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin's health status. Dr. John Maddox, Trauma Medical Director, and Dr. Gregory Chestnut, Center for Prostate and Disease Research of the Martha Cancer Center Director at Walter Reed National Military Medical Center, Bethesda, I should say. That sounds better. Maryland, provided the following statement regarding Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin's health status. Earlier today, still as of yesterday, Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin was transported by his security detail to Walter Reed National Military Medical Center to be seen for symptoms suggesting an emergent bladder issue. Tonight, after a series of tests and evaluations, the Secretary was admitted into the critical care unit at Walter Reed National Military Medical Center for supportive care and close monitoring. At this time, it is not clear how long Secretary Austin will remain hospitalized. The current bladder issue is not expected to change his anticipated full recovery. His cancer prognosis remains excellent. Updates on the Secretary's condition will be provided as soon as possible. And with that being said, there was one more update. This one from today. 2 hours ago, in fact. And once again, it's an update, a statement from Walter Reed Military Medical Center. Dr. John Maddox, Trauma Medical Director, and Dr. Gregory Chestnut, Center for Prostate Disease Research and the Martha Cancer Center Director at Walter Reed National Military Medical Center, Bethesda, got it right that time, Maryland. A lot of credentials there. Provided the following statement regarding Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin's health status. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin underwent non-surgical procedures under general anesthesia to address his bladder issue. We anticipate a successful recovery and will closely monitor him overnight. A prolonged hospital stay is not anticipated. We anticipate the Secretary will be able to resume his normal duties tomorrow. And the current bladder issue is not expected to change his anticipated full recovery. His cancer prognosis remains excellent. So they seem to be anticipating good news. Doesn't mean it's not a setback. Okay, nearly 20 minutes into this. I am running late for work. So, thanks for bearing with me. Sharing is caring. If you like it, put a ring on it. Sharing is caring, as I already said. All that other good stuff. Enough about me. I gotta go. See you later. Peace.